where I will be going to Hyde Park to meet with a client for a photography shoot. Now, you're probably wondering, why did I choose Hyde Park? It's Sunday, and many people just tend to have a relaxing time in Hyde Park. So you'll see some casual fits. But don't forget that you do need to be smart as well and not look completely lacking. So you see a mix of smart and casual. And our client has gone with said smart and casual fitting. So we're going to get to you some top quality pictures out of today's shoot. Now, let's get to Hyde Park. So we're currently here at Marble Arch Station. As you can tell, there is an event going on. I have no idea what it is, but I sure hope that they don't play any copyrighted music, because you know, copyright laws regarding music on YouTube is something. But yeah, just stand around, wait for our client to show up, and we'll get started. As you know, I have met the client. His name is, introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Oscar North, a biomedical science student, but also working as a model today. A DJ as well. I've got an events company called Liquid Frequency. Definitely check it out if you love house music.
All right, time for the clips of the shoot. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'll go for a headshot now. Now it's just like look to, yeah, do exactly that. Love that. 1, 2. And I'll give you a ka-chow. Now we're going to look at the editing settings for some of these photos that I've taken. On the left, you see the raw file. It was a typical overcast London day, very flat and very grey. My goal here was to add depth and make the model stand out from that muted background. First, I bumped the exposure by 0.4, just to bring some life back into the frame. To keep it from looking washed out, I increased the contrast by 7. This gives the image a punchier, more professional feel immediately. Because the sky was so bright, I dropped the highlights slightly to -2 to keep detail in those brighter areas. Then I opened up the shadows by 22. And this is key, as it brings out the texture in that vintage leather jacket and reveals the details in the hair that were getting lost in the darks. To keep that crisp look on the white shirt, I pushed the whites to +10. But to ensure we still had that deep, rich tones, I dropped the blacks to -16. This stretches the dynamic range of the photo, creating that high-end editorial pop. And to finish, I cranked the sharpening to 150. This emphasizes the details in the ring and the texture of the tie, making the whole image feel sharp and intentional. This raw image was already bright enough, so changing the exposure to +0.65 made the picture even brighter without overdoing the lighting. The contrast level of +10 allowed the model to be well separated from the background without removing the model entirely. As for the highlights, they helped the background become more clear without affecting the model himself. The shadow level of +13 and whites level of -27 bring more light onto the model only, and the black level of +3 helps in mediating the lighting. Texturing wise, not much change was needed as the original photo was already quite clear enough, and I didn't want the image to be too in-depth. For the sharpness, it's set at 150 to increase the clarity of the image. In this shot, I set the exposure to 0.5, as otherwise the photo would have become too bright to look at. As for the contrast, I set it to +7 to expose the center of the image, and the highlight setting set to -3 helps with this even more. The shadows increase lighting a little to the smaller black patches with minimal light, and having the white set to +2 helps make the changes to the shadow setting more visible. And the black settings pretty much finalize the foresty look I was going for in this shot, so yeah. The coloring of the image is visible enough, so increasing the vibrance just made the intensity of the colors much more stronger. And as for the sharpening, it's set at 150 to make the edges and essentially the photo much more clearer to see. So for this photo, I had to first rotate the image 2.96 degrees clockwise because the building didn't appear flat. So I had to fix that, of course. So I kept the exposure change at negative 0.29, as the raw photo itself was at a decent light level already, so not much change was needed there. The contrast helped bring some depth into the background, but increasing it too much would have brought some darkness around the image, like when you have a vignette that brings black around the corners. The highlights I've set to negative 73, and changes are subtle, but as you can see, the sky is becoming more visible, essentially. You can see the grey scales on the top right-hand corner. As for the shadows, it affects the background light, but to a much lesser extent. But nevertheless, I've kept it at a low positive 14. Now for the whites, they didn't do much to help with the lighting, and neither did blacks. However, the changes in vibrance against saturation protects the image's natural look, as the saturation would have given the image way too much color, more than it needs to. Both the texture and sharpening help bring out the visibility of the background. In this photo, the texture is set at 25, and although the sharpening is at maximum once again, the texture does the lifting on this job. A DFL reshared this picture on their story. For the last image, the exposure at plus 0.74 gave it sufficient lighting for this shot, hence the contrast of positive 12 brought out the texture of the clothes. The highlights play a key role in making the model stand out in this shot, and it has been set at negative 36 for said reason. Since the overall lighting in the raw image is darker than the other two, modifying the shadows to positive 51 and blacks to negative 10 have contributed to the brightening of this image. As for the whites setting, not so much. Again, we can see that the vibrance wins over the saturation in terms of bringing out the color, and the settings on screen are optimized for this shot. The photo itself is clear enough already, so the sharpness is set at 103 as opposed to 150. And this right here is my favorite shot from the entire shoot. Thank you very much for watching today's YouTube video, and if you like what you see, then hit the like and subscribe button, and I shall see you soon.